Everybody, Sean for Movie Assault here, and it's time once again for another video. This time out I wanted to do a movie review, and this time I'm going to review Zack Snyder's Justice League. Now this of course is the 2021 version of 2017's Justice League that was originally credited to director Zack Snyder, but was mostly directed by Joss Whedon. And by now, everyone who's interested in this movie knows why it exists, that being Zack Snyder's Justice League. But in case you don't, I'm going to try to explain the story. Bear with me, it's a little bit of a long story. Zack Snyder, who is the director of Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman, was working on Justice League in 2016. And there was a lot of studio pressure on him to make a more accessible film because the audience response to the first two films in the trilogy were that they were a little too dark, a little too gloomy for superhero films. These are films that are being compared to Marvel's rather lighter in tone superhero films that were a lot more jokey. So the studio was putting pressure on him to do a lighter film. And creative tension on the set was pretty high. Warner brought in Joss Whedon, who was the director of the Avengers and Avengers Age of Ultron, and had him sort of redoing some stuff and essentially redirecting some of the movie. Zack Snyder's daughter, unfortunately, committed suicide, so that was obviously a big impact on his life, and he tried to work through while he was dealing with the suicide of his daughter. It didn't really work, so he had to remove himself from the production, and when that happened, the studio installed Joss Whedon as the director, had him reshoot a bunch of scenes, he rewrote a bunch of scenes, and Zack Snyder's vision was sort of dark. Whedon was sort of humorous, and the combination of the two really didn't mesh that well. And in a rush to meet a previously announced studio release date, Warner Brothers didn't allow for time to fix issues with character chemistry or the trajectory of the plot based on how Snyder wanted it and how Joss Whedon wanted it. And Joss Whedon was reworking the script that was done by Chris Terrio. So as a result, when the film came out in 2017, the reviews were really poor. The film pretty much bombed by expectations. It made a lot of money, but it barely broke even or didn't break even. I think the studio actually lost $60 million on the film as a result of the poor box office showing. And almost immediately after the 2017 version came out, there was this outcry on social media to release the Snyder Cut. There was a hashtag, release the Snyder Cut. And people were saying that if they that Warner would release the Snyder Cut, it would allow people to see the actual Zack Snyder vision of what the film was originally supposed to be. But up until early 2020, nobody was really sure that the Zack Snyder Cut even existed, other than a work print that Snyder may have had in his collection. But Zack Snyder then announced that he was actually going to release a Zack Snyder Justice League, and it was going to be released on HBO Max. Well, now, after retooling the film and reshooting some scenes and restoring scenes that were deleted from the original theatrical release, Snyder's version has officially arrived. And it basically retains the same basic plot points of the original version of Justice League, but it does allow some room for characters to breathe and kind of evolve into what they should have been all along. Warner demanded that the original film, the 2017 film, not come in any longer than 2 hours long. And when you have a plot sort of as, I don't want to say convoluted, but as complicated as Justice League, where you're taking all these different elements and assembling a team of heroes, and you have to give them a mission, it was kind of hard to pack all of that into 2 hours and still retain any semblance of a coherent plot, much less any details about any of the characters, any of their motivations, anything like that. Well, by contrast, the Zack Snyder Justice League runs just a teeny bit over 4 hours long, so there is plenty of room for the film's characters to breathe a little bit, for some exposition to happen, some character development, and even though they follow the same basic plot, they're entirely different movies. Both films revolve around the events that took place after Batman vs. Superman. Little bit of a spoiler for Batman vs. Superman if you haven't seen it, so if you haven't seen that film, stop watching this review. Okay, now that you're gone. So Superman dies at the end of Batman vs. Superman, and his death awakens these boxes they're mysterious boxes called mother boxes. And if these 3 boxes are placed side by side, they create something called the Unity, which is basically like a death machine that will kill anything in its path, and it will do the bidding of the person who assembles the Unity. Currently, at the beginning of the film, the boxes are scattered across the earth. One is in the possession of the Atlanteans, Aquaman's people. One is in the possession of the Amazons, Wonder Woman's people. And the other is in the possession of mere mortal men. In both films, a villain named Steppenwolf appears to retrieve the boxes with the intent of creating the Unity, this death machine thing. In the original film, Steppenwolf appeared to be working pretty much of his own accord. In this new film, in the Zack Snyder version, Steppenwolf is trying to get on the good side of a character named Darkseid, who is played by Ray Porter. Darkseid is sort of, if you're familiar with the Marvel films, he's sort of the Thanos of the DC Comics universe. He's a conqueror of thousands of worlds. In the new film, Steppenwolf's appearance has also been enhanced quite a bit and improved, if I say so myself. So basically, Steppenwolf is the villain in both versions of the film, and in both versions of the film, a team of metahumans, which is the quote-unquote technical term for the superheroes in the film, has to be assembled, and it's being assembled by Batman and Wonder Woman to basically live up to a promise that Batman made to Superman. So to thwart Steppenwolf and his parademon minions, he's got these parademons that look like men crossed but with insects. They're sort of his soldiers. Batman and Wonder Woman attempt to recruit Aquaman, who's played by Jason Momoa, Cyborg, who is played by Ray Fisher, and the Flash, who is played by Ezra Miller. And most of the film details this attempt to round up these new members of the team and get them to play nice with each other. In this new version of the film, Cyborg especially, and the Flash a little bit, they get quite a bit more screen time, especially Cyborg. In particular, the Cyborg storyline is significantly fleshed out in terms of his motivation. He's made much more interesting, much more sympathetic character. He was sort of a brooding kind of you didn't really know why, unless you knew from the comics, why he was sort of a darkish character in the 2017 version. But in this version, he sort of becomes, I would say, the most fleshed out, fully realized, and central character of the film. Other characters are also given more time to become familiar. Aquaman, Batman, and Wonder Woman all are featured in additional scenes that fix some, but not all, of the rough edges from the 2017 version. Other upgrades include an improved score by Tom Holkenborg, who is also known as Junkie XL. The complete elimination of all of Joss Whedon's rewritten, reshot footage that includes the weird upper lip of Superman. And there's a few surprise appearances by several characters that didn't appear in the original film. And that includes the Joker, who's played by Jared Leto. And I'm not spoiling anything. He was featured in the trailer for Zack Snyder's version of the film. Many of the scenes that appeared in the original version are expanded or re-edited slightly to change their context. For example, the initial action sequence with Wonder Woman featuring a museum heist is re-edited, given some additional expository dialogue, and it works much better as a scene. It's very much improved. But even with all of the new changes and enhancements, Zack Snyder's Justice League remains at the mercy of its two predecessors. It's sort of rickety foundation that it's built on. Both of those films were good, not necessarily great, but they left a lot of unanswered questions, and this movie is supposed to solve or answer those questions. And when you view this film as part of that trilogy, the Snyder version of Justice League succeeds where the Whedon version failed spectacularly. This isn't a perfect film by any means, but it does allow the audience to see what Snyder's vision in the first two films, where that was leading. The story is still a bit suspect, and the DC Extended Universe shouldn't have thrown their characters all together that fast. I think there should have been some additional films before there was any attempt at a Justice League movie, so we knew who these characters were, a la what Marvel did with the Avengers films. The Marvel Cinematic Universe did quite a few films, standalone films, before they attempted to assemble the Avengers. And I think the DC Universe should have done the same thing. So it kind of, no matter how you slice it, the DC Universe kind of feels like hey, we're missing out on all that money that we could be making. Let's hurry up and throw something together. And with all the improvements that the Zack Snyder version of Justice League has, it still is symptomatic of that. But Snyder's trilogy now is finally complete. The new movie does create some additional questions. There's sort of this odd tacked-on epilogue that foreshadows a direct sequel or maybe a series of sequels. And with the way that the DC Extended Universe is sort of hanging in the balance, it was shaken by the original failure of the original Justice League, which prompted the studio to kind of go off and make more standalone type films like Aquaman and Shazam, and try not to tie them all into a centralized universe anymore. This one kind of ends on a note where maybe there's going to be a more united extended universe of characters. So that kind of flies in the face of what DC is doing right now. And also you've got the departure of Ben Affleck in the role of Batman. He's not going to be playing him anymore. And there's a sort of uncertainty about whether Henry Cavill will be playing Superman anymore. So I don't want to get my hopes up that any of these maybe foreshadowed films will ever see the light of day. So ultimately, is Zack Snyder's Justice League worth seeing? Absolutely. Does it improve on the original version? Absolutely. Should it have been the version that was released in the first place? Absolutely. So I'm giving Justice League, the new version, and what I will consider the canonical version of Justice League. Throw your Justice League Blu-rays in the trash. When this comes out on physical media, I will definitely be buying it. I'm giving it a 4.5 out of 5. So there you go. That's my review of Zack Snyder's Justice League. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope it wasn't too rambly. And you can now see Zack Snyder's Justice League on HBO Max if you're in the United States. I believe it was released to some theaters, and it's going to be released on other channels all across the world. If it hasn't been done so already, then it will in the future. I know they have plans to get it into venues where international viewers can see it as well. As always, feel free to rate, comment, and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and click that notification bell so you are made aware of new videos when they become available. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take it easy.